All right, everybody, welcome back. We are diving into Python today with this Intro to Python course. And, one thing that really struck me going through it
Mm-hmm.
is how it really zeroes in on this
Yeah.
problem a lot of folks have, which is, I want to learn Python. I want to use this for my work.
Right.
But, where do I even start? It's so intimidating.
Yeah, and there's a million things online, right?
Exactly. And this course...
Which one is going to actually, get me there?
Right. And that's what's so great about this Udemy course we're diving into today, taught by Harry Monroe. He's also known as the simulation guy.
The simulation guy. I like the sound of that. What's his background?
He's got some serious real-world experience. We're talking projects for the Ministry of Defense, even modeling the London Underground system.
Wow, that's impressive. So he's not just talking theory. He's actually applied this stuff to some pretty complex problems.
Exactly. And that's what makes his approach to teaching Python so refreshing. He ditches the abstract stuff and jumps right into practical applications.
So it's all about giving you tangible skills that you can use right away, right?
Absolutely. Imagine yourself analyzing environmental data to pinpoint pollution hotspots.
Or say you're a civil engineer and you need to model stress points on a bridge before you even start building.
Exactly. Those are just a couple of examples.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's unpack this a bit. How does Harry actually get you up to speed with Python, especially if you're starting from scratch?
Well, he starts with the fundamentals, using a beginner-friendly platform called Thonny. Don't let that fool you, though. Even seasoned engineers can benefit from revisiting the basics.
True. It's always good to have a refresher. So what comes after that?
He dives into variables, which are essentially the building blocks of any programming language.
So it's like making sure your toolbox is fully stocked before you start build, right? You need to know what each tool is and how to use it.
Precisely.
So we've got our blueprints, our tools. Now we need to talk about the materials. In the Python world, what are we actually working with?
Harry introduces some of Python's real heavy hitters, starting with NumPy.
Okay, so tell me more about NumPy. Why is it such a big deal in the Python world?
Imagine you're trying to analyze sensor data from, say, a wind farm, with thousands of readings coming in every second. Traditional methods would just choke on that much data.
Oh, yeah, I can see that being a problem. Too much data, system overload.
Exactly. But NumPy handles it with ease. It uses these things called arrays, which are like turbocharged lists, specifically designed for numerical operations. And the best part, NumPy can do calculations on entire arrays super fast.
But it's one thing to crunch numbers quickly, and another thing entirely to actually make sense of it all.
Right, that's where Pandas comes in. Think of Pandas as the ultimate data organizer.
Okay, so if NumPy is the engine, Pandas is like the steering wheel and dashboard.
Perfect analogy. It takes raw data, often in those CSV files you see in engineering and science, and transforms it into these neat tables called data frames.
Data frames, are those kind of like spreadsheets on steroids?
You got it. And the real beauty of Pandas is how easy it makes exploring and working with your data.
Okay, so walk me through this exploration. What can you actually do with Pandas?
Well, for starters, you can use the head function to glance at your data, or info to check data types and if anything's missing, and describe. That gives you those handy descriptive stats like the mean, standard deviation, all those good things.
So it's like having a whole team of analysts at your fingertips, ready to summarize and dissect your data on command.
Precisely. And that's just scratching the surface of what Pandas can do.
So we've used NumPy to crunch the numbers, then we organized it all with Pandas. Now, for the fun part, finding those insights that can really make a difference, it's like the data's trying to tell us a story, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Python's got the tools we need to figure it all out. We can calculate the mean, median, mode, that sort of thing.
Right, to understand the patterns or things clustered together.
Yeah.
Or really spread out. Are there any weird readings that stand out?
Exactly. Those outliers could be a sign of something bigger. Then there's variance and standard deviation, showing how much the data fluctuates.
Oh, so it's like knowing the average temperature is useful, but knowing how much it swings up and down during the day, that's a whole other level of insight. Could mean there's an issue that needs fixing.
Absolutely. And this is where visuals come in handy, which is where Seaborn comes in.
Ah, Seaborn, turning numbers into eye candy. I like it.
It's a game changer. Imagine. You take all those complex statistics, turn them into graphs and charts. Suddenly, trends jump out. Outliers are obvious. Those aha moments happen way more often.
It's like instead of just reading a description of something, you get to actually see it. Much easier to understand.
You got it. Seaborn's got all sorts of options. Simple scatter plots, histograms, even fancy ones like box plots and violin plots, whatever you need. So we've got our data wrangled, we've visualized the important stuff. What's the grand finale of this Python crash course? What about that predictive maintenance project?
The final lesson of this deep dive ties everything together with this project that simulates monitoring industrial equipment. Think. Temperature sensors, vibration readings, pressure gauges, the whole works.
It's like strapping a Fitbit to a jet engine. We're talking about using data to actually anticipate when a machine might break down. Sign me up.
You got it. And the exciting part is that this project gives you a real taste of how these techniques work in a real-world setting. We're talking about preventing costly downtime, maybe improving safety, and making those machines work smarter.
You can see those subtle variations that might indicate a problem down the line. This is cool.
And here's where the real magic of predictive maintenance comes in. The lesson shows you how to add what are called threshold lines to your plots.
Threshold line. So is that like drawing a line in the sand? Saying if the data crosses this, we need to pay attention.
Precisely. Let's say, based on the machine's specifications or your experience, that if the temperature of that bearing goes above a certain point, it's a sign of imminent failure.
Okay.
You can set a threshold line on your seaborne plot at that critical temperature, and if that line is crossed, you've got a visual alert.
So instead of waiting for a machine to break down, we're using data to anticipate problems and schedule maintenance proactively. That's incredible. Yeah. No more fire drills in the middle of the night.
Exactly. And the best part is that the code for setting up these threshold lines is surprisingly straightforward.
Well, that's good news.
This course does a great job of breaking it down step by step. Shows you how to go from raw data to those actionable insights.
This has been an amazing journey. We've gone from feeling overwhelmed by data to unlocking its potential with Python. What's the most important takeaway for our listeners, especially those who might be thinking, I could never do that?
You absolutely can. Python might seem intimidating, but this deep dive has shown just how accessible it can be. Start with the basics, build those foundational skills, and don't be afraid to experiment.
There are tons of resources available. Online courses, communities, documentation.
And remember, you don't have to become a coding wizard overnight. Start with a problem that you're passionate about solving, something that truly matters to you, and use Python as your secret weapon. The possibilities really are endless.
I love it. So to all our listeners out there, whether you're an engineer, a scientist, or just someone who loves digging into data, remember this. Python is your data superpower waiting to be unleashed. And who knows what incredible insights you might discover. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a whole new world of knowledge. Until then, happy exploring.